Okay, so I've been talking to a lot of people recently about how emissions are calculated, and there seems to be a lot of confusion and misinformation about different parts of the process regarding how do you actually get from understanding your business to understanding the carbon emissions of your business. And I wanted to just quickly walk through the very basic concepts behind carbon accounting so that some people can kind of understand, because the goal is ultimately to eliminate barriers to people understanding and reducing their impact. And I think doing this calculation is one of those big barriers. So if we look here at the basic equation behind carbon emissions calculations, it's you start with your usage data, and I'll go through an example of this as well, but this would be something like an electricity invoice or a volume of fuel used during a period. You multiply that by an emission factor, and so this is essentially how many units of carbon and other greenhouse gases are emitted per unit of fuel or energy, and that equals your greenhouse gas emissions. So really simple: activity times emission factor equals emissions. There are, of course, some complications here. There are things that add time to the process, add confusion to the process, but the underlying equation is just this. It has three components. To give a quick example here, before wrapping this up, let's say we're calculating emissions from purchased electricity. Let's say we use 150 megawatt hours per month of electricity at our facility in the United States. You take that 150 megawatt hours and you multiply it by the emission factor. And this just comes from the United States EPA. You can Google US EPA emission factors and find this one for the US average. In order to get to this exact number, what they actually publish is each of the gases, CO2, CH4, and N2O, in their document. And so you have to do a little bit of quick math based on the global warming potential of these gases. And I just show that down here at the bottom. You can pause the video and look at that if you want. But what you're doing is essentially multiplying each of the emission factors of each gas by that gas's global warming potential in units of carbon dioxide equivalent to get to this emission factor. And just to zoom in here, emission factors have two units. It's the amount of carbon emitted per the amount of whatever fuel or energy source it is. So in this case, it's pounds of carbon dioxide equivalent per megawatt hour of electricity. Remember, we have 150 megawatt hours of electricity. And so this month's carbon emissions is 150 times 822, which is 123,000 pounds of CO2 equivalent in this month, or 55 metric tons. So behind all greenhouse gas calculations is this really simple formula. And depending on the activity, there might be some complications. There are certain categories that have a slight adjustment of this formula, but overall, these are the basics of it. So hopefully, if you're relatively new to greenhouse gas accounting and impact tracking, this has been helpful for you. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. Thanks.